Hello, welcome to Edinburgh Airport. My name's Andy Newport. I'm joined by Scott McDermott for this week's edition of the Record Rangers podcast. We are about to embark on our journey en route to Bruges, full of enthusiasm for the week ahead, following Rangers with all the trials and tribulations that come with it, Scott. We'll start with yesterday. I was in Paisley. The Rangers draw 1-1 with St Mirren, another 1-1 draw. The big headline after the game was obviously the future of Hamza Igamane. I'm sure we'll come to that in a minute, but just first of all, your reflections in the game. I mean, for me, it's another game where Russell Martin's team has failed to shut a show. Any kind of spark, any kind of signs of what it is he's trying to achieve. How did you see it?
Well, Andy, I think, see, going to Paisley, I think every Rangers fan going there, and probably us included as media, had a vision of how that game could pan out. And to me, Russell Martin's biggest challenge was to make sure that the game didn't pan out that way. And I think ultimately he's probably failed in that regard, because to me, the game went as you pretty much thought it would. Rangers actually started the game okay, but before long they get into this rhythm again of this kind of slow, laboured build-up. Thought they struggled to win any second balls, which is crucial against St Mirren, just the way they play, because they're so direct. I think Rangers struggled in midfield and defence with the physicality of St Mirren, which again, you know is coming.
I think that's an important point. I thought St Mirren looked terrific. I thought so organised, but so aggressive, so much intensity. They played so hungry to win the ball, and Rangers had to know that was coming. Exactly. They had to know that the midfield department, they were going to be hounded at every time, every moment they got the ball. There wasn't going to be these spare moments to take extra touches or extra passes. They had to, when the spaces came up in front of them, they had to exploit them. For me, that's what they failed to do.
That's everything that Rangers haven't had at the start of the season, that appetite, hunger, desire, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I asked Russell Martin at the press conference on Friday how much we were going to find out about these players on Sunday because of that, whether they could match that. And I don't think they did in the first half. They looked as if they weren't ready. As I say, they were second to every second ball. Initially, actually, Suter and Fernandez were winning high balls. But St Mirren picked up every second ball. I mean, they had a midfield runner every time getting onto that second ball. I thought Rangers played too much in front of them. Again, I think occasionally, we talked about it the way through here, occasionally against a team like St Mirren, when you're playing them away from home, you need to just turn the defence every now and again. It's just a clip ball into a channel just to get you up the pitch. And more importantly, get your defence turning, even if it's just not out for a throw-in or a corner.
Keep them honest.
Exactly, 100%. And Rangers, they just didn't do that. Listen, they had a couple of chances in the first half, Rangers, but St Mirren were well worth the lead because of the way they played. Russell Martin has to change it at half-time. I suppose he deserves credit for that. When he goes to a back three, kind of rings the changes, 2 subs coming on. I don't think initially it made that much of a difference. For me, the big turning point for Rangers was bringing Tavernier and Young Curtis onto the pitch. I think they changed the kind of dynamic in the game. I've been critical of James Tavernier, obviously, at the start of this season, saying he's not quite been at it, and questioning whether obviously this will be his last season at Rangers. But I tell you what, Andy came on in that second half. He gave Rangers a bit of impetus. He did simple things like driving forward with the ball, passing forward, which is what the fans were crying out for. I just loved the way, as soon as he got into the game, he started clipping balls over the top of Mirren's defence. Just what I'm talking about, getting them turning. It wasn't overhit passes, it was just little clips in behind, making them turn, making them knock it out for a throw-in or a corner. And that, to me, that made a big difference. And obviously Curtis, he gave them a bit of energy. It's a bad day when they're having to rely on a kid coming on to give them that, but it comes up with the big moment.
This is what I was going to say, Scott. I mean, Russell Martin even sort of mentioned it afterwards in his post-match press conference. I thought it was a damning statement that he made, where he was basically saying that some of the older players, especially the guys that maybe wanting away from the club, could learn a lesson from him that this a young kid, 18-year-old boyhood Rangers fan, obviously. His whole attitude is just wanting to do the best that he can for the club, for the people at the club, for the supporters. And point to him as a shining example of that when there's guys, I'm sure we'll come on to in a minute, in terms of guys that are essentially leaving the club. I mean, but I think just from a football point of view as well, Finlay Curtis, I think you have to give the guy credit for the 3 goals he scored this season. All of them have been great finishes. I mean, I think we both agreed the Panathinaikos game when he first came in, he looked a wee bit unsure, a wee bit maybe up. The level was a bit too high from obviously just coming out of the academy, but the boy can finish okay.
And he comes on to the game with urgency about him that Rangers need to get something. As a Rangers fan, he knows that I want to draw it isn't good enough, especially when you're drawing the first 2 games of the season. So he comes into it with that mindset, that urgency, that determination. We need to get something out of this game. There's too few of the players played with that tempo or intensity. It's just not too many of them looking through the motions, thinking, waiting on something to happen for them rather than actually go and make that happen themselves.
Now, for me, that's the fundamental issue with this Rangers team. Is it doesn't matter what they try to achieve tactically, is that they do it all far too slow. We've seen Celtic teams over the last 2 or 3 years that they come out and they blow opponents away and they win the game in the first 20 minutes. And why do you think it is that this Rangers team, successive Rangers teams, haven't been able to get themselves into that headspace where we need to start as if it's the final 10 minutes and you're 2-0 down?
Honestly, mate, I don't understand that. I've been writing about this for what seems like 3-4 years. Is this lack of urgency, lack of hunger, lack of intensity to go and win a game? It's like, we spoke about it the way through. I mean, just a couple of wee tactical things. We thought, I do agree, Russell Martin changed a couple of things at the start, which I thought were a positive. I actually thought the first 5-10 minutes Rangers were okay and they looked a bit different. I thought, unlike the first few games of the season, the 2 fullbacks actually stayed as fullbacks. Normally, as one of them, usually Max Aaron's coming in and playing as a 3 and building for the back that way with the other fullback further forward. I thought it was far more conventional, which I thought was a good thing. And in midfield, Rangers have been criticised early in the season for the 2 number 8s being too wide in the game, the midfield being stretched. And initially at the start of the season it was Raskin and one other. But they looked uncomfortable in these positions. I actually thought Rothwell and Cameron with Raskin behind them were a fairly close.
They weren't as wide open as they've been. Certainly. I mean, but for me,
looked better. But sorry, I was just going to say the frustrating thing about the slow build-up. I said it earlier on. Rangers would get into situations, usually in the right back area, where they've got 2 players and St Mirren are hounding them, right? So there's 4 or 5 players, and it's obviously difficult to play in that situation. Rangers actually did well a couple of times to work their way out of that with 2 or 3 passes. And at that point, that's where you need to go and play fast and play intense and get up the pitch with speed, because you've taken 4 or 5 of St Mirren's players at the game. Instead, Rangers worked the situation well, got themselves out, and it goes to either Suter, Fernandez or Raskin, and the whole thing slows. Everybody takes a breath and the whole thing slows down. It just didn't make any sense. It allowed St Mirren to get back in. And getting back to the initial point, this mindset of this slow, laboured build-up, waiting for things to happen, I can't get my head around it. I just don't understand it.
For me, I think a big issue is that this is a team that just doesn't yet look comfortable with what it's been asked to do. I mean, fundamentally, you're asking centre-backs to wait until pressure comes and then to play a pass under pressure. And I think what you're seeing a lot of times is that guys are playing those passes because they've been rushed, because they've been pressurised, they're playing sloppy passes. And then that then has a chain reaction, because the guy receiving the ball is having to stretch, is having to take 2 or 3 touches to get hold of the ball. And by that point, everything then breaks down. Whatever space you've developed disappears. So,
see, we spoke about Curtis there, right? I actually think, and he probably won't get a lot of credit, right, because he didn't do anything spectacular in the game. I actually thought Lyle Cameron's attitude was brilliant yesterday. Of course, he'd misplaced passes. It wasn't his best game, right? He lost the ball a few times. That's fine. But he played with an intensity and a pace and a desire to actually go and make things happen. He wanted to get the ball. He was making unselfish runs, trying to create space for others. Honestly, if everybody had the attitude of a Cameron or a Curtis, Rangers would be in a far better place. And how listen, Rangers fans will make you just hope and pray that it comes. There's a bit of lack of confidence there at the minute, as you say. There's a change of manager, change of style. There's a bit of uncertainty there. They have to hope and pray that A, once this window shuts and Russell Martin gets his squad together, and B, once they're into this rhythm, this way of playing, that once they start winning games, they gain a bit of confidence. Suddenly they start to play with that bit of intensity. Because honestly, in Scottish football and in the Scottish Premiership, certainly, if you don't play with that, particularly the top two, when they go to places like St Mirren, you just won't pick up points. It just won't happen for you, and you'll struggle. Certainly, in Rangers' case, you're going to struggle to mount a serious title challenge.
Just finally on the sort of run a play stuff before we move on to other issues, but I mean, in terms of the team news, obviously the sort of surprise news up front was Taylor Asgard starting as that false nine, and obviously in the defence you had Manny Fernandes coming in to replace Nasser Giga, who's suspended obviously. I mean, obviously this is a game that the club initially was hoping to postpone because of Nasser Giga's sending off against Dundee, which would have meant he would have then, if they had this game not taken place, he'd been suspended for Celtic Park. They rethought that. I mean, that put a bit of pressure on them, didn't it, to get to get a result here. But in terms of just the two guys coming on into the team, I mean, Asgard for me, nice coming towards the ball, holding up the ball, nice, but just not enough of a poacher's instinct. You saw that with the chance he has to score when he's 2 yards out. It's a great save from Shamal George, but he has to save that one.
First of all, what you need to say, Andy, is Rangers are going into that game probably shows you kind of where Rangers are and the kind of the direction of travel, if you like, the last couple of years. But going into that game, as you say, a young centre-back who have signed for Peterborough in League One, and a striker who's not a striker, who's come from Luton, who've just been relegated to League One. And I think that kind of tells its own story. In terms of the two players, look, Fernandes to me is what he is. He's a young, developing, raw centre-back who has potential because of his physical attributes and the fact that he's really good in the ball. But he still looks a bit naive, a bit rough around the edges.
He doesn't. We talk about strikers having killer instinct. I think you can have defenders that just get that nose for danger and know when it's time to play, when it's to put the ball out. For me, I don't think he's.
Ayunga is his man at the goal, and
he
just loses him, gets the wrong side. Ayunga gets inside him, and it leaves John Souttar trying to chase him back. So look, there's a naivety there, there's an inexperience. Rangers have paid a lot of money for Fernandes. They obviously see future potential in him, maybe a future kind of sell on in terms of what they might get from him. Sunday's game would have been a big learning curve for him. And for Asgard, I mean, I felt sorry for him. He's not a striker, obviously.
Has played there a few times before Brugge.
Yeah, like you say, I thought, especially early on, he was actually okay. His touch snap was decent. And you think sometimes Dessers and Danilo get criticised for the hold-up play. He actually did okay, but as you see, he's not got that striker's instinct. He's not going to stick with chances. We thought the game, probably, when he was coming off, his first instinct should have been to turn and try and get Gassama or Antman in it.
Everyone early on seemed to be coming towards the ball, and it just made it so comfortable for St Mirren. They know they didn't have that threat in behind. The only time they had to worry was to say the ball out to Gassama, but they were doubling up on him an awful lot. And then that made it a lot lighter for him. But in terms of, as you say, just turning them, keeping them honest, giving the St Mirren defence a reason to not perhaps push on as much as they were able to do a lot of the time. I just thought that the blender at the mix wasn't quite right.
And obviously it didn't help that the manager wanted to put a striker on. He couldn't. So what do you make of Igamane situation? I mean, it was funny because at half time I'm walking down towards the press room to get a wee half-time refreshment, and actually I see Hamza Igamane, some of the St Mirren fans taking selfies. So I mean, at that point, all smiles, nothing wrong. And then 25 minutes later, the manager's trying to bring him on, and he's basically refused to come on. Says he's got himself a thigh pull. For me,
if he has done it, well, wow, what bad luck. But it all seems very coincidental, especially no, me neither. And I think if he's basically refused to play because he's taking the huff or he's trying to keep himself right for a move to Lille, I think it's a disgrace. I mean, this Rangers they plucked this boy for obscurity, gave him a huge opportunity to play in Europe, to play in big derby matches, and he's made a decent start at Rangers, but that's a boy who still gets so many rough edges to knock off, and for him to, basically, react like that to his manager, who's desperate for a win, needing somebody to pull his weight and come in and help the team. I think it's unforgivable.
But you can only imagine back in the day, Andy, a Rangers player telling Walter Smith or Alex McLeish or Jock Wallace or something that they weren't going on. I mean,
he's lucky though. The kind of character that's still around.
They'd still be scraping themselves off the dressing room wall or off the back of the dugout. Look, I totally agree with you. I watched Igamane go out for his kind of first half warm up during the first half behind the goal, and I mean the three other subs, as you would, jogged round to do their warm up with the fitness coach. Igamane just walked. I mean, he just sauntered. And I mean,
he's maybe pulled his squad sort of during that walk.
Ambling round. Look, his attitude. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. His attitude has kind of stunk since he got back in the summer. He's clearly. Look, we're trying to read this from the outside. There's been a lot of speculation over the summer about Lille. For me, it looks like the boy is going away in the summer. He's been told that there's a bit of interest for Lille. It's appealed to him. It's one of the top 5 leagues. He speaks the language. In his mind, he probably thinks, right, that's the dream move for me, and it looks like he set his heart on it. And as far as we're aware, no serious bid yet has come in. I know Russell Martin said a bid was rejected, but we're led to believe that was a kind of cheeky loan offer that came in last week.
As far as I'm led to believe that, obviously Rangers are talking about sums like £15 million, and Lille have never been able. I've never thought that was achievable.
No. And it looks, again from the outside, it looks like whether it's the agents or whether it's Lille or whoever have basically said to Igamane, look, you need to be unsettled at Rangers to try and push this through. And my big gripe with it is, and you touched on it, this is a boy, 22-year-old, for me, has achieved nothing in his Rangers career so far. I think he's had 4 really good games for Rangers. He scored the winner against Celtic. He had a hat-trick against Hibs at Easter Road where he was outstanding. He got a double against Nice in the Europa League, again where he was excellent. And he scores a wonder goal against Spurs at Ibrox, which really made the fans take him to their hearts. He scored 16 goals last season. I think he played 46 games, 16 goals, which is a decent return for a young
I think it was also playing off the left a lot didn't help him.
Aye,
having to accommodate Cyril Dessel.
But in the grand scheme of things, he is a rookie. Rangers have given him a wonderful opportunity. In his career, as you say, Philippe Clement plucking him from nowhere in Morocco. For relative little money, giving him that platform. Igamane for me should have went away in the summer thinking, right, new manager coming in, I'm going to go away, I'm going to work my backside off, come back and make sure I'm the number 1 striker for Rangers next season, and I'm going to take my game to another level, and eventually I'm going to get the move that I dream about. There's no way he was at that stage yet, and that has been proved by the lack of bids, the lack of offers, the lack of interest.
I mean, you have to say, I mean, looking at him so far, I mean, he came on in one of the early European games out with Panathinaikos, looked okay, made an impact, gets himself a small injury, has missed the best part of a month, come back in last week, but what sort of conditions is he to go and make an impact? Should he go to Lille? I mean, this, again, it's dummy out the pram sort of thing. If I was Lille, I would have concerns. Because what happens if he goes there and then somebody else starts taking interest in him there? If you're going to have to go through the similar things that Rangers are now dealing with?
I think Rangers got a big decision to make now, Andy. Russell Martin clearly wants rid of him, right? That's evident. But as we say, as it stands now, there's no offer that's suitable to Rangers. So what do they do? Igamane, the manager doesn't want any bad apples in the dressing room, right?
You said that he's desperate for the window to close.
Exactly, right? You can understand that. However, at what point do football clubs, and in this case Rangers, take a stance against players who have 4 years left their contracts, but because there's interest elsewhere, they decide to put the tools away? I mean, it's unacceptable. And for a guy who they didn't pay a lot of money for, so it's not as if Rangers are losing millions here, right? That's just not the case. He's known big wages. Genuinely, if I was Rangers, if I was Andrew Kavanagh or Patrick Stewart, I'd be tempted. And I'm not saying it's going to happen because I know the way football is these days, but you'd be tempted to say to Igamane's representatives, listen, the lesser bid comes in for 8 million plus, I think that should be the minimum that he goes for with 4 years left in his deal. The lesser bid comes in of minimum 8 million plus, you will sit in the B-teams, you'll sit in the youths for a year. 4 years left. Rangers aren't under any great pressure to sell him, other than the manager probably wants him away from the training ground. But as it stands at the minute, if it's a loan offer or if it's for a couple of million quid, Rangers are well within their rights to say, no, you can just sit. No, you don't treat this club the way you have done and expect there to be no repercussions. So it's going to be really interesting anyway in terms of transfers, especially with Igamane. No?
But obviously it remains to be seen where Hamza Igamane's future lies, but Russell Martin, and I said last week live, I felt this was a game he had to win. Not so much in the eyes of the owners, the Americans, I felt he had to win it in the eyes of supporters. I think he's in danger of, a lot of them have already made their minds up and have decided he's not the man. I don't think he's done anything to dispel the doubts that supporters had. So where do you think he now sits in the eyes of supporters?
Well, in the eyes of the supporters, he's coached on a very sugary peg. I think the majority of them have made their minds up, as you say. The majority of them don't want him as manager, and he's got a huge task in trying to turn that opinion round. It's been a disastrous start in the league. Let's not beat about the bush. I keep saying this. Russell Martin said himself, this isn't me saying it, this is Russell Martin saying the day he got unveiled as Rangers manager that he had to build something and change a culture and change a mentality, but accepted at the same time they had to be winning games. No, the quote we always refer to Patrick Stewart about having to build a plane while flying it. They've not done that, so they've failed in that regard in the early part of the season. Look, what you're probably getting is, do I think Russell Martin's job is under threat? No, at the moment, no. I just think it's far too early for the board to act at this time. 3 games into the season, the transfer window isn't even closed yet. And I say to you on the way through here, and it sounds the most ridiculous thing ever, but to me it feels strange that Rangers haven't won a league game yet, still on 6 points.
There's only 3 games.
Exactly right, but and I know it's ifs, buts and maybes, right? It's hypothetical. If they can somehow, and it doesn't look as if they're capable at the moment, if they can somehow beat Celtic at Ibrox next Sunday, suddenly the window closes. They'll have shifted a lot of the dead wood. They'll have brought in, it's 10 so far, I think it could be 13, 14 players before the window closes. Suddenly they'll be 3 points behind Celtic. Russell Martin will have his squad, he'll know what he's working with, and they'll win the group stage of the Europa League. Now, I'm not making any excuses for him, I'm not trying to put a kind of positive spin on it. It is what it is, but I think we need to see where we are after the Old Firm game next week. And as I say, if they could somehow muster a win, and it's interesting because they've drawn these games they're expected to win. Nobody's expecting them to beat Celtic at Ibrox. It just wouldn't surprise me if they go and get a result at home. I don't think Celtic are a particularly great place just now themselves, even though they've won their 3 league games. So here again, if they can get it to 3 points, it might not quite look as bad for the manager, even though the supporters are pretty much made up their mind.
For me, I think sport can have a major say in this, and it maybe not be through protests, it maybe not be through chants or the groans that you hear around the ground. I think last week was a worrying sign for Russell Martin with that game at home to Club Brugge, Champions League playoff match. Everything riding on it, £40 million, placing Europe's biggest tournament, and with 10,000 pretty much empty seats. I think, depending what happens this week, and as much as you're saying you're offering the glass half full viewpoint, I think if it goes the other way, and if things go wrong on Wednesday night, if they take a sore one against Celtic on Sunday, the new board will be looking. They've obviously got a Europa League ticket package to sell.
Yeah.
What sort of uptake is it going to be for that? I think that's the point where Russell Martin then becomes in trouble. That's why I think this week is so key to him. He has to offer. It's not results. He has to start showing something, some sign of hope, some sign that the turning point is coming. This is why this week's key, and I do think I'm going to get a result for Celtic, a result against Celtic is key to it.
Listen, I know what you're saying, it is about showing something, but ultimately it needs results. We know he's not going to change his principles or anything, but ultimately it needs results. That's what I say about Celtic game. It doesn't matter how they play next Sunday. If they win, it'll make a massive difference. I don't think it's going to change the narrative completely, but it will make a massive difference to Russell Martin to beat Celtic, win the first Old Firm game. As I say, get to the end of the window after a period of, obviously, no turmoil, but a period of seismic change at the club. To be only 3 points behind, I'm not saying he would have taken it. And that's why for Rangers fans, those draws against Motherwell and Dundee in particular at the start of the season are so frustrating. Because I think the picture looks completely different. If they win those two games, suddenly the St Mirren draw, which is a really tough place to go, doesn't look as bad. And you'd be going into the Celtic game, even if you get 7 points, you'd be into the Celtic game knowing if you beat them, you could go top. So it can change very quickly. Does it look as if it's going to change? No, at the moment, but as you say, I'm trying to give the Rangers fans some positivity. There's not a lot to get about.
Well, listen, you could see how Rangers fare in Belgium, and obviously next Sunday, in the Old Firm game. You can keep up to date with that at Record Sport online and obviously in the paper too. So see how it goes, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much.